Brian Early, field agronomist with Pioneer, back looking at nitrogen rates in our number 2 of our cost cutting series. Nitrogen is going to be our second highest input behind seed, and it's one that behaves differently year to year depending on weather aspects on it. So it's always one to examine every year and make sure you're dialed in best that you can, especially when times are tough like this and you can look at efficiencies and timings and potentially cut your rates back. So, speaking of rates, the place I like to start is looking at local research. So, fortunately for us, Purdue has done a great job of looking at on farm nitrogen um, use rates and conveying them to costs. So if we look at the graph down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see two different arch lines, a red line and a blue line. So if we look at the blue line, this is one of the sites. This would be for a northern Indiana sandy type soil. The blue line is going to be the agronomic line. So as I go up that blue line, as I get more and more on, I'm going to come to a point where I just can't put any more on agronomically. So even if I put more nitrogen on, I'm not going to get any more yield. So you start putting costs in there. So grain price and nitrogen prices would be signified by the red line. So with the red line, I can actually put more on, and you're going to see it's going to mirror the blue line, but then the economics are going to go to a point where it's going to arch over and go down. So you'll see a slight difference there between the blue and the red line. The red line would be what is called marginal return to nitrogen. So that is your cost point at where I cannot put on any more in and make any more money. So for a soil here in northern Indiana, 174 pounds would be the rate that they would suggest. So probably a rate that's a little lower than most put on. So I think that alone in itself is a good starting point. Are you putting on historically too much? Because with nitrogen, it's been fairly common for a lot of people to say, well, I want to make sure I have plenty on there. And a lot of people have abided by that. So, but this graph shows that indeed a lot of times you can start with a rate that isn't quite maybe that 1.1 or 1.2 pounds of nitrogen per bushel and not short yourself. So, in fact, the agronomic rate to get a return of 212 bushels is showing that it's not only is it not one over 1.0 as well. So looking at the plants or looking at the growth season, you can really start honing in on your efficiency by looking at your timing. So looking at across the spectrum here, there's a lot of people that are going to either put on a pound or 1.2 pounds per bushel they're going to raise throughout the year. Those that split their nitrogen up, so I either put it on with the planter and then I put some on side dress, and maybe I even split some up later with an irrigation pivot or a high clearance sprayer. The more applications, the more close I can get that timing to this timing right here, to I can get it around tassel time when I want about 80% of my nitrogen there. The closer I can get that and have my nitrogen either close to the roots or in a form that's more stable and going to stick around, I can get my efficiency definitely below 1. So I know guys that are pretty efficient managers might look at this zero point 0.8 pounds per bushel, or someone that even fertigates a couple of times. A lot of the fertigation pieces you can read, you can get efficiencies almost down to zero point 0.6. So you can really get your efficiencies up just by moving that application closer to when the plant actually needs it. So another good place to look and see what is going on there and see if I can take advantage of some efficiencies. But what about biological fixers? Been several of these on that have popped up on the scene lately. This is a culmination of those that have been done by land grant universities looking at Avita, Nutrition, Proven In, and so it's either a yes/no payout. So you look at the state across there and which one of the products they use. And glaringly on this thing, what you see is there's a lot of no's on here. So I don't necessarily want to beat up on biological products, but they're probably as finicky as nitrogen is as itself. So you're going to have a lot of interaction there with the soil and the environment. So is it hot? Is it dry? Is it too wet? Things like that are going to affect them just like they would nitrogen as well. So what you see with that is when you look at it at 1,000-foot view, you're not seeing a lot of places where this is paid off as much. So something to keep in mind, because these products tend to be on the more expensive side as well. So maybe something that you just still do trial work with, and maybe not go whole farm with some of these products as well. So to wrap it up, really look at the system as a whole and use that Purdue guide to start out. So you can get your rates fairly dialed in for your situation right off the bat, and with a rate that's economically or been economically backed up by almost 10 years of research in a lot of cases on soils that are pretty similar to ours. So with that, if you need to cut your rates or think you can cut your rates even lower, I can start looking at timing efficiencies too. Is there a way I can split some of it up, go a little bit later in the season, get it closer to the plant roots when that plant needs it closer to tassel time? I can cut my nitrogen rates a little more and not hurt myself. So that has been the goal of the entire series, to look at ways to increase or keep your yields and cut your costs. So we don't want to cut yields as we do that. So hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you.